Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the project we're going to be working on over the next couple of videos. Ultimately, we're going to have 100 balls in an array bouncing around an HTML canvas. This is all running in the browser using JavaScript, but we're going to learn how in the first video to make objects 4 different ways in JavaScript. Okay, welcome back everybody. We're going to go ahead and take a look now at 4 different ways to make objects in JavaScript. The simplest way is to make an object literal, and to do that I simply use the var, I say equals, and I'm going to make an empty object, and that is now an object in JavaScript. If I were to save this, and I use lowercase letters here, so I need to say var, notice that turned blue, and now I have an empty object. To see this, I can go back to the browser, and if I reload this guy now, and I come over here and I hit X, let's go ahead and see this, and I should be able to hit this, I have an empty object. And if I look inside of it, actually, if I hit this little triangle and look inside, it's not completely empty. It has this thing called underscore underscore proto underscore underscore, and that is another type of object, and it's called the prototype. And if I click on the arrow here, I can see that this has lots of different methods and so forth in it. Every object in JavaScript is linked to the object prototype. If I want to add elements inside of this, that's easy to do. An object is nothing more than a set of name-value pairs. And so if I say A colon, let's say 3 comma, and I say B colon 34, now I've got 2 values inside of my object. Now if I save that and go back to my browser, I should be able to see those objects. First I go ahead and reload. Now I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to hit X again. I'm going to hit enter. And notice that X has 2 values. It has A and B. If I open up, A has the value 3, B has the value 34, and I still have that prototype link. Okay, one more thing now. I'm going to come back in and reload this, and this time if I say, for instance, I want to get access to the inside, I use the dot operator the same way I did in JavaScript. So if I said, for instance, A and hit enter, that would return the value 3. If I say x.b and hit enter, that will return the value 34. Okay, so for the 4 objects, we're going to make ball objects. In the first case, I made a ball object using the object literal method. And so this says var ball equals, and I have curly brace, but I have name value pairs. The first name value pair is radius, which has a value of 3 in this case. And the second name value pair has the name diam, but the value, notice, is a function. And it's going to return 2 times the radius. And so if I were to go back and look in Chrome, so now I'm going to go ahead and type in ball, see what ball is. Notice that ball is in fact an object with a radius 3, and it has a diameter function. This is the function notation over here, and if I look in there, it tells me something about that. But if I were to come back down here and say ball.diam, it would return the function. And if I say ball.diam and put parentheses, now I'm doing a function call, so that's going to return the value 6. Okay, so the object literal method is a very simple way to make a ball object, but remember in our project we want to make 100 balls, and we don't want to have to repeat that code 100 times. So we're going to make a ball factory, and the ball factory looks simply like this. Notice that inside we have a function called ball factory. It's taking in a parameter called radius, or rad. And I have inside of the ball factory, I have an object literal, and then I simply return that. And so the object literal is called ball, and I return ball. Notice inside the object literal I have radius rad, I have get diameter, which is a function, and it's going to return 2 times rad. Thought that should be a this there. That's interesting. So we'll go ahead and see if I get an error message. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and hit save to make sure I have all of that. Now let's go ahead and use this to make a ball. I'm going to say b1 is equal to ball factory, and I'll pass in a value 23. And if I did this correctly, then when I get my ball, I should be able to call this method, and I should be able to get a value of 46. Let's go back to Chrome. Okay, I'm going to reload this. And so now let's see if B1 exists. If I hit B1, there it is. Notice that B1 does have a radius, and it does have a get diameter function. So let's see if I can call that now. If I say B1 dot get diameter, and so all I want to do is put parentheses there so I know I'm dealing with the function call, and I do get the value 46. So this is a very nice way. Now I can make as many balls as I want to, and in fact in this project we could use this method. I could make I could pack this function call into a loop, and I could call it 100 times and pack each of these objects into an array of balls, and now I've got 100 balls packed into an array. Okay, the next one is number 3, the constructor function. The constructor function works just like the ball factory, except it simplifies it a little bit. Here's the code. It says function ball, and instead of creating an object literal, I think this is still doing the same thing behind the scenes. There's an object literal, but notice it doesn't have a return statement. It just has one instance variable named this.radius, and it has one method or function called this.getDiameter, and it's going to essentially do the same thing. Let's go ahead and make a ball object, and so for this one I'm going to use the keyword new. I'll just say var, let's say b3, and that's going to be equal to new ball. And this guy, let's pass it in the radius of 22, and so if I save that and come back to my Chrome, okay, now I can go ahead and take a look at B3, and there it is. Notice that it has ball inside. It has a radius of 22, and it has a function called get diameter. So now if I were to go B3 dot get diameter and put parentheses here, it's going to go ahead and return 44, just like I would expect. But again, an important thing here is the function is inside each of the balls. So if I make 1,000 balls, I've got to recreate get diameter in memory 1,000 times. And there's another way we're going to look at in 3.5. So now we have a constructor function that's simply taking the ball factory idea and simplifying the code a little bit. I called this 3.5 because there's something I want to add to this. I think what I'll have to do is comment this out for a minute, because I'm going to call this guy constructor function 3.5. So let's go ahead and say 3.5, and what I get is now ball.rad. So I've taken this method out of the constructor function, and what I've done is I've separately said ball.prototype. Remember, the ball object, all the objects we've looked at have a link to the prototype object, and so if I say ball.prototype, that's that other object that all the balls share, and if I put the method in there, it's doing exactly the same thing it was before. Let's go ahead and see what happens. I'm going to say, for instance, ball, let's say b35 is equal to new ball, and let's pass it in, let's say 44 for the radius. And so now if I go back and I run this in Chrome, let's see what happens. Go ahead and reload that, and so I have b35, and sure enough, notice that I do have a ball, but the method is gone. But if I look inside the prototype, get diameter has been moved to the prototype, and it tells me a little bit about that in here. So the big difference is that now if I have 100 balls, that function get diameter is going to be in the prototype for each one, and I don't have to recreate that code over and over and over. I think back when JavaScript was first being developed, that might have been a bigger deal than it is today because our computer systems are so powerful, but it's something to keep in mind. Okay, so the last method is the classical method, because that uses class syntax, and that looks like this. So I'm calling this classy ball. Notice it has the keyword class, classy ball. There is a constructor function, constructor rad, and then it has this.rad equals rad. So this now looks like JavaScript. And so what happened is, in the latest version of JavaScript, I'm sorry, this looks like Java. In the latest version of JavaScript, they made this look like Java, because a lot of people, and it actually looks like other modern languages as well, but a lot of people that come in JavaScript thought this whole prototype thing was very strange, and it took them a while to get used to it, and so they have this syntax. But what's really happening is this all gets compiled back into what we saw earlier in those other examples. They call this syntactic sugar. It's just a kind of smoke and mirrors to help people feel comfortable. But what's interesting about this is that I can use this the same way that I used the other constructor function. For instance, if I say ball, let's say b4, and this is equal to new ball, just like before, and if I give it a radius of 5, Okay, oh no, I need to go ahead and say classy ball here. So the constructor name is, or the class name is classy ball. So I need to say new classy ball, pass in the value 5. I'm going to go ahead and save that, come back over here and reload my program, and I'm getting an error here. So I'm going to go back. It says that I can't use this before I've defined classy ball. So I'm going to go ahead and move that down here, see if that makes a difference. If I come back and say run this, now it seems to be working. I'm not sure what that is. I'm going to have to look a little bit more. But in any case, now I do see I have a classy ball object, and it has a radius 5. And if I look inside the prototype, there is my get diameter function. And that's what I wanted to add to the fourth way for getting a object in JavaScript rather. So that's it for today. Bye-bye.